I remember from a young age always kind of feeling like something was missing. Everybody seemed to have a blueprint for life. I felt kind of like at one point God was giving everybody instructions, and I missed that part. I wasn't paying attention. For some reason, I felt like I looked different than everybody else. I talked different than everybody else. I was on a different wavelength mentally, and not in a good way. I felt unique in the sense that I felt ostracized. I came from a good family, but I always felt like I couldn't live up to that family's expectations. You know, I had a lot of people in my family who followed the law to the T. They did everything that growing up I was told you were supposed to do. A lot of people knew my family. They knew people in my family, whether it's my mom's side, my dad's side. And I always got this ringing endorsement from everybody. Oh, your family's so great. I know your grandmother, I know your grandfather. I know your mom, I know your dad. They're such great people, you know, you must be such a good boy. I didn't feel like that. So I think in my own way, I kind of started to rebel. I didn't feel like I had a connection with a higher power. I didn't really feel like I had a connection with anybody. I started hanging out with people that I had met through football, sports, school, things like that. And a lot of them had a less supervision in their family than I did. So I started hanging out with them, and they kind of seemed to be of the same mindset of I did. You know, they really didn't want to conform to societal norms or the rule of law. They didn't want to. They weren't focused on getting good grades. They weren't focused on being successful. We were just focused on having a good time, because that's what I thought was going to fill the void inside me. I remember the first time I had a drink of alcohol. I think I was in 6th grade and spending the night at a friend's house, and we stole a bottle of Bacardi Zero from his parents' liquor cabinet. We didn't know what we were doing, but I remember we had our first drink, and I remember the feeling I got. It was warm, and I felt safe. I felt relaxed, kind of numb. And suddenly, all these pressures I had that I'd put on myself and that I thought everybody else was putting on me just kind of disappeared and went away. I felt like I was driving in a car and there was a rainstorm and it was pounding my car, and then that moment when you go under the bridge and the rain stops and everything's quiet, that's how I felt. And I'll never forget that feeling the first time I took a drink of alcohol. And things just progressed from there, you know? I mean, I just kind of fell into filling that void with whatever felt good, whether it was girls, food, but a lot of drugs and alcohol. And I didn't have a ton of access to it till I got to high school. And that's when I started experimenting with marijuana, more alcohol. I was put on Adderall, which if you know, a lot of people who have ADHD, when they take Adderall, it doesn't make them hyper or get them high. They feel normal. I didn't know what I was doing, but I quickly found out that if I saved up 2 or 3 and didn't take them for 2 or 3 days and then took 3 or 4 in a day, I felt really good. So I was abusing drugs from a young age, from, you know, 6th, 7th grade on. And then I hit high school, and there was an even wider range of people to spend time with, people from all kinds of different backgrounds. And drugs and alcohol were pretty readily available. I was a decent athlete. I was a good football player. You know, I got injured my freshman year playing football. And the following year, I had my first orthopedic surgery on my shoulder. I had torn my labrum. And that's when I got my very first prescription for opioid pain medication. I think it was Percocet. And that's when things really started to change. I remember the first time I took a Percocet, it was even different than the first time I had a drink of alcohol or smoked a joint. It really made me feel like I had filled that God-sized hole in me. I felt like this is how I should feel every day for the rest of my life. And if I can't feel this way, I don't really want to go on living. Fast forward, senior year, I've had 2 more shoulder surgeries, quite a bit more pain medication. This was during the prescription pain medication boom, for lack of a better term. This was what started the opioid crisis for a lot of people. Pills were very easy to get, you know. Kids were able to go into mom's medicine cabinet and pull out 10 Oxycontin, and mom wouldn't notice, because if mom needed more, she could go to the doctor and get another script. I could call a doctor and say, my shoulder's bothering me, I need another script of prescription pain medication. You could go to a pain doctor, take x-rays, MRIs with you, fill scripts. It was pretty readily available. One of the things that really changed the scene of prescription medication was Opana or oxymorphone. You know, we had already been through the Oxycontin. They made them waxy, so you couldn't crush them up, you couldn't snort them, you couldn't put them in a spoon, cook them down and shoot them. But then they came out with Opana, which was oxymorphone, which was even stronger than Oxycontin. And those were really easy to get. I remember being a junior and senior in high school, I could probably get, 10 milligrams of it for $10, which today would be unheard of, but it was something that everybody had, and it was not hard to find. I did not believe that drug addiction could happen to me. I thought it was some concept that adults came up with to scare children because they didn't want us to have any fun. Who are these sober people who say that they've never been drunk in their life to tell me that I can't drink, vodka and take a pill? They don't know what they're talking about. Everywhere you looked, it was talked about popping a pill, drinking, syrup, lean, codeine, smoking weed, drinking liquor, champagne, doing all kinds of drugs. And when you're in high school, you don't see the fallout from those things. You hear about it, but it's something that's not going to happen to you. It's not going to happen to your friends. I was already a full-blown addict, whether I knew it or not. The lying, the manipulating. At that point, everything that I did in my life was to protect my disease. The disease is very powerful. It talks to you. It talks to me. It tells me, we can't trust these people. They want to keep us apart. No, it's just me and you, and I'll take care of you. Because remember how we felt before you found me. You felt horrible, and now you have me, and you have to protect me because I'm going to protect you from your feelings. And that's what it was all about to me, My family was kind of starting to catch on. I think they started to catch on a little bit when I was a sophomore in high school. They were not ready for the years to come. They were completely blindsided by the extent to which my addiction would progress. So my football season ended. Senior year, had another surgery. I'm an experienced drug user at that point. I've done cocaine, I've done Molly, I've done pills, opiates, benzos like Xanax, Ativan, drinking alcohol on a regular basis. I was probably intoxicated more days my senior year than I was sober. So I made it through senior year. I was on track to not even graduate, but somehow I ended up graduating, and by the grace of God, I graduated. I don't know how. Everybody else had a problem. I didn't have a problem. I didn't know why people just couldn't leave me alone. Well, I'm not hurting anybody but myself with all my drinking and drugging. What's their problem? They don't have to deal with the consequences I do. During that time, it was kind of a blur, really, because I was using so much, but I did accept a scholarship to the University of St. Francis, and I was excited about that. But again, the disease had taken hold pretty well. I ended up staying sober for a good part of that summer. I used some, but not like I was. And then I was excited to start football in the fall. And then I remember, I think it was 2 weeks into camp or something like that, my freshman year at St. Francis, I hurt my back. I blew a disc out. I remember initially one of the things that insurance wanted me to do was take pain medication first and try physical therapy before they operated. Well, I'm sure you can imagine how that went. It went extremely poorly. I had my hands on prescription pain pills again. I was also not really able to be a part of the team. When you're injured and you're new to the team, you're really not able to form those bonds. So I spent a lot of time hanging out with old friends. I was finally approved for a back surgery. I knew I was going to get scripts of pain pills. But I was like, it's not going to be enough, so I need to stock up, So I remember I was buying up all the pain pills I could before my surgery, even though I had some already. I remember I went to my dealer's house, and I said, do you have more of these Opanas? He said, I got 2. He said, but I got something else, too. And he said, it'll actually be cheaper once you buy these. He's like, but it's the same thing. And I said, okay, what is it? He said, it's called heroin. I knew what heroin was, but at this point, I was so far along in my disease that I was ready to believe and rationalize, along with my drug dealer, that heroin is the same thing as a pain pill. Nobody starts off doing heroin. Nobody wakes up one day and says, I'm going to do heroin today and become a drug addict. It was a slow progression up to this point. I pushed the limit further and further each time incrementally, that at this point, you're so far. You know, it's almost like swimming out to sea. And then at some point you realize, oh my gosh, I'm too far from the shore. And you look back and you don't know where the shore is. And you're like, how did I get all the way out here? So I decided to buy 3 bags of heroin to go with my pain pills. So I spent, a week laid up doing heroin and pain pills and smoking weed, and still I hadn't become physically dependent yet. So I started to feel better. I started to go to physical therapy, and now I had a chance to play. So I was kind of refocusing myself and able to put some of the drugs and alcohol on the back burner for some reason. This is one of the periods where I was able to be sober for a period of time. So I had a really good semester, and that was probably the best semester I ever had in college, was fall 2012. I felt like a real college student, felt like a normal person for once. So things were going well. And then Christmas break, everybody decided for Christmas break. Problem was, I was removed from the environment where I was doing somewhat well. So I was like, I'm going to reward myself. I got good grades, had a good season. So I started using heroin again, and honestly, that is when I started injecting heroin, using IV and shooting, using needles. It's a whole different sensation from snorting or swallowing to shooting. A couple days turned into about 6 weeks. And then it was time for school to start. It was time to, rejoin the team. And I found out very quickly that I had become physically dependent on heroin. And that is when I started to get sick, couldn't sleep, felt a lot of anxiety. I just wasn't the same person. And I did a shot of heroin that day, and I felt a ton better. And I said, oh no, I've turned the corner. I'm physically dependent. So honestly, I didn't know what to do, because I never thought I'd get to this point. So I freaked out. What do you do? What's the right answer? Who do you call? What website do you go to? What do you do with the kid or the person or the loved one? So I pulled out of school, left the team, gave up my scholarship, and attempted to get it together. I was what a lot of people would call a full-blown drug addict at that point. Like when people have an idea of what a drug addict is like, that was what I was at that point. I was somebody who was willing to steal, I was willing to rob, I was willing to do whatever I had to do to get money to get heroin on a daily basis. Needless to say, I went, to fall camp and was completely out of shape, hooked on heroin, did horrible, and for about a week I stuck it out, and then I just told my family, I need more help. And I pulled out of school again, left my scholarship behind again, and checked myself into St. Joe Behavioral Health here in Fort Wayne. And I was detoxed. I was detoxed there, and came out and went to a program in Indianapolis. Most of the people that were in that program were either paroled out of prison there. A lot of them were sex offenders, murderers, things like that, who really had nowhere else to go. And I was sent there by a family friend who had the best intentions in the world, and so did my family. They just didn't know at the time. Again, there's no number to call, 1-800 my son's a heroin addict, what do I do? So they just went off what they knew, and they thought that this program would fix me. Well, it ended up not fixing me, obviously. I left that program and I was homeless in Indianapolis for a period of time. And that was pretty difficult, like I had gone from having, be playing football in college, and, my father's an attorney, my mother's a social worker. My family's successful, I had lots of friends, a car, all this stuff. And Now I'm homeless in the streets of Indianapolis. I didn't even have a cell phone. I didn't even have my wallet or, an ID. I was able to convince somebody to let me come live with them back in Fort Wayne. And she was a good person. She was just trying to help me out. And like I said, I took advantage of it. And I was spending a lot of time with my best friend, and could never quite put it all together. Like I was living with my family at that point, and your parents, your wife, your kids, whoever, they're not meant to be your sober living house manager. It's hard for them to know what to do. I mean, they love you. They want to believe what you have to say. But it's easy to manipulate our families, like I said, because they love us, and a lot of times they enable out of love. Then summer 2015 came. I got another job working for a moving company. That was going really well, but there was a lot of money. I mean, I was making weekly checks of like $1,000 or more sometimes because of all the overtime and the tips and everything like that. So I started using again. Money was always a big trigger for me. So then go through fall 2015, I decided to quit taking Suboxone, which is always difficult because it does have withdrawal symptoms to it, and it's got a longer half-life than most other opiates. So basically, I made it off the Suboxone, and I got another job, doing landscaping. The people who hired me there were good people, and they were trying to invest in me, and my best friend got me the job. But me and him, again, were not good together. We ended up relapsing, and I went on a really bad run there for a while, and that was probably one of my worst runs. I overdosed several times. I remember one of the times it was Sunday morning. They were downstairs. I had been getting high the night before, and they asked me if I was coming down to eat. I said no. I said I didn't feel good, which was a lie. I was just high. And I went in the bathroom and, did my shot, and basically what happened was, and I don't remember all of it, was my dad heard something strange upstairs, and he went to knock on the door, my bathroom door, and he had smashed it open because I was overdosing. And then they picked me up and threw me in the back of his car, and I was not going to make it, so they had to have an ambulance and a fire truck meet my father at Canterbury Middle School on the way to Lutheran Hospital because I wasn't going to make it, so it took them a long time to get over seeing a lot of stuff like that. I think they saw me overdose and have to go to the ER many, many times. And it was something very traumatic for them, and I'm sure they'll never forget it. I was a part of another program here in town, and they were an outpatient program, and they said, we've gone as far as we can go with you. You need a higher level of care. So they referred me to a place in Chicago. So they let me in, and I built a lot of good relationships with people in that program, and it was an excellent program. The best I had been through so far. And I really thought that I had it this time. Like, I was pretty sold on the fact that I was going to be sober the rest of my life, So I was abstinent from heroin for 5 months, right? And I loved it up there. My plan was to stay there, right? Well, while I was up there, I had a friend of mine back home who had a very unfortunate accident surrounding his drug use. I thought like part of the reason I had to move home was because I had to help him out still, right? I wasn't home very long and I started drinking again. It wasn't very long before I relapsed. I remember it was like the day before Christmas, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do some heroin. Reward myself, right? Christmas heroin, which makes a ton of sense. So I did. This is one of the last relapses I would ever have. This was by far the most destructive and one of the worst and most miserable. The disease is progressive. At least it was for me. So I have to leave my parents' house for sure. I'm living with my girlfriend. My parents are giving me like $70 a week for groceries because I conned them into it somehow. Still, I end up getting kicked out of her house, my parents' house. I'm living in my car for a short period of time. Sleeping at like Stellhorn and the McDonald's on Stellhorn Road there in Fort Wayne, trying to find a Wi-Fi signal because I had a brand new iPhone 6 that I sold for drugs. And so I had a cracked iPhone 4 that I could pick up Wi-Fi on with no service. And so I would try to contact my drug dealer through that. I was able to get up money one day to get high, and I convinced the girl that I think we had broken up, but I convinced her to let me in the house or something like that. I don't remember exactly the circumstances, but I was in the house and I had used the drugs I had gotten. They had told me to be careful. I knew it was fentanyl, and I had overdosed in the bathroom, and it was so bad that they had to smash the door down to get me out. I remember I woke up to the firefighter standing over me, and doing whatever they had to do to bring me back. They loaded me in the ambulance, took me to the hospital. So I ended up leaving the hospital, spent the whole next day trying to get high again. Was able to convince her roommate to let me back in, and this time I locked the bedroom door. And then she had to smash the bedroom door to get in that time. This was twice in 24 hours that I had overdosed and pretty much died. And I remember the firefighters and the police came back and they were like, "What are you doing?" We were just here. And they said, "I don't think you're going to make it a third time." I said, "That's fine." I said, "Don't come." I said, "I don't want you here anymore." I said, "I don't want to be revived. I don't really care." And I refused to go to the hospital. Well, every time there's an overdose now, a radio call goes out to a narcotics detective, so they can investigate whatever they have to do. So then they called this guy, who's a detective here in town, and his name's Mark Gerardo, and he just came and he just talked to me. He just sat and talked to me for 2 hours, and he just sat down and he said, when I talk to him now, he says he could just see how broken I was and how sad I looked, and he said he was tired of going to overdoses where people had died. He was tired of just all the carnage and all the disappointment and death, and he said something told him he needed to go to that house and he needed to go talk to me. And so he sat down next to me and he just said, "Just tell me what happened." So, "What do you mean?" He said, "How did you get here?" I mean, I didn't know what to say, so I really just started talking, and I just told him I told him the whole story. And he sat there and kind of looked at me and nodded quietly, and he said, "Do you want to get help?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I don't think there's any help available." He said, "Can I make a phone call for you?" I said, "Sure." He was able to get me on a plane the next day. So he was able to send me to Stewart, Florida, to a detox down there. And then they were able to send me to a residential treatment center. All I knew was I didn't want to live on the street. I didn't want to live in my car in February at a McDonald's with my gas light on with a cracked iPhone 4 with $20 trying to decide, should I get a cheeseburger because I'm starving? Should I put gas in my car because it's cold? Or should I go buy heroin because I'm dope sick? Or should I go drive my car into a tree? I realized every day in that treatment center, I just had to, no matter how I felt, I had to get my butt out of that bed and go sit in that chair and listen to what somebody who had done it before me had to say. And I did that. And, there was one more time in Florida where I had a slip. But that happens to people. So I used one time, and then I called the treatment team of the sober living I was a part of, and I told them that I had screwed up. They didn't yell at me, they didn't punish me, they didn't beat me, they didn't turn me into the police. They took me to the hospital, got me medically cleared, and put me back in treatment and said, "Let's do it again. Where'd you fail? What happened? What was missing?" So all the times that I went to treatment and tried different programs, a lot of people would look at that and say, "So you failed 20 times and succeeded once." I don't look at it that way. I look at it all as one big success. I see those other times as learning opportunities. So I basically figured out what didn't work. And I was able to live long enough to look back on it and see where the holes were in my recovery. So Fort Wayne Recovery is the program that I started working for. And we started that. It officially opened in March 1st, 2018. And I've been working there for almost 2 years now. And I helped build the program to what it is today with the help of Mickey and, Adam and Justin are two people that work there as well. Adam Hochberg and Justin Anderson, who came on to the company later, but they also worked at the treatment center that I went to, and not only am I able to say that I've been to the depths of insanity that some of these people have been to and the depths of despair, but I can say, these people who I work for, I trust them with my life. So maybe you can trust me with yours and trust that, we're going to do right by you. I died on that bathroom floor. I did. I shouldn't be here right now, if it wasn't for God. And I am. So I try to live every day with it in mind that I'm here to serve the next person. I work a 12-step program. I go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings several times a week. I have a sponsor. One of the things he told me that I try to hold true to every single day, I keep it simple. I have to keep it simple, because if I complicate it, I screw it all up. Coming full circle, my family always told me that I had a good heart. People have told me that my whole life, and that I'm going to help other people someday, and I never believed it. As a lot of you have heard throughout my story, I always thought I was a bad guy. And I believed that, and I thought that that's why I did all these bad things, because I was just a bad person. I don't believe there's bad people out there. I think people do bad things, and I think a lot of people that do bad things, they have things that get away from them, that they go down paths that they didn't mean to go down a lot of times. So if somebody's watching this, you find yourself watching this video and you hear similarities in your story, or say it's bringing up feelings in you, and you're saying, I might identify with that, I don't know, or you have somebody in your life that you think is headed down that path, or is on that path, or is to that point where they need help, I would encourage you to reach out, to somebody you trust. Anybody who's watching this video is more than welcome to reach out to me. I work for a treatment center here in Fort Wayne called Fort Wayne Recovery, but I am happy, and so is Fort Wayne Recovery, to connect anybody and everybody to whatever resources are available to them. At the end of the day, we just want to serve as many people as possible and get resources in the hands of those who need them. We just want everybody happy and healthy at the end of the day, and want to be of service however we can.